Hi, it's JP Morgan. Welcome to the Slanted Lens. Today we're going to talk about, in our live show, the R5 C, some other great cameras from Canon, some Sony news, we got some stuff from Capture One. We're going to roll it all together and just a little bit of this and that. So let's get started and see what we can do. But first, we're sponsored today by Platypod. Platypod has a deal, Slanted Lens Max. If you go to the platypod.com, you can get the Slanted Lens Max, with the code SLMAX, you get the Max with the great bundle kit there that's worth over $115. Get that bundle. I love this little device. I carry one with me everywhere I go. I have 3 of them going right now at SKB, recording time-lapse, still recording time-lapse over there. So check out the Platypod Max and that new multi-bundle. So get over and pick one up. There you go. So let's talk about new news today. I have been waiting forever for a camera that would check all the boxes for me from Canon. And Canon has given me exactly not that, but an incredible camera. There's no doubt that the R5, I think, is one of the best still cameras that has ever been made. The autofocus, the image sensor size, just everything about that camera I think is absolutely spectacular. I love the R5. I think it's a great camera, but it had problems with overheating, as everyone knows. So the C version was supposed to be a cinema camera version, and that's exactly what they've done. They have made a cinema camera. Of course they have. Look, it has a red button. Has to be a cinema camera. If you have a red button, you are a cinema camera by virtue of the red button. But what's interesting about this camera is that they did exactly what the S1H did, and they stuck a big fan on the back of the camera to be able to cool it down to allow you to record and to not overheat. And they also have a button on the top that switches between stills or video. So you can go back and forth between those two options. I have heard it takes a little bit of time to switch between those two options, about 6 to 8 seconds. If you want to switch from video to, well, either way, it's going to take several seconds to be able to change the modes in the camera. The camera, when you change modes, has different video menus for the video camera, different menus for the still camera, but it does a lot of really great things. It's going to give you a great wave form if you're capturing audio, which I love capturing audio. I want onboard audio capture because now I can marry that with the clips, and it really helps the workflow when working here at the Slanted Lens or when I'm doing projects. I can get right to it and start editing, but this gives you a .wav file, so you can use those things independently, which I think is fabulous. So many things about it. The one thing that they're really touting is it shoots 8K. I'm going, that's fabulous that it shoots 8K, until I find out that it doesn't have IBIS. Now I'm going, why would you say it's going to overheat and so we could either do IBIS or 8K? I am not needing 8K, but I sure would love IBIS. And Canon's saying, well, you know what, a lot of shooters don't use it because they're going to have this on a gimbal, they're going to be on different drone, all those kinds of things. And I'm going, wow, that's a pretty small part of the market. If you made this camera for people who only use this camera on gimbals and drones, maybe really high-end shooters, maybe, I don't know. That's a pretty small part of the market. The reality is most of us that do run-and-gun kinds of video shooting are going to handhold all of the time. And so the IBIS is great. Now they do have electronic stabilization that works with the lenses. Of course, they don't have any stabilization in most of their prime lenses, which is not uncommon. That's very common for most camera companies. In their zooms, they do have the stabilization, so you can stabilize the two together. I'm looking forward to getting a hold of this camera and hope to be over at Film Tools very soon to be able to do a test with this camera and really look at whether that stabilization is as strong and does as good a job as you would like. So there are tests out there. We'll take a look at it with the R5 C and just see exactly what it's doing. Other things about this camera that I think are incredible, it's not that heavy. It does have that little fan on the back, but it wasn't the X1D type of version that has a large battery pack on the bottom, which is also like the Z9. I love that about it because it's still a very small package to be able to use and to carry, backpack, do whatever you need to, but have a really high-end type cinema camera. Some other things that everyone are complaining about is it has the HDMI, a macro HDMI. Why would you put a macro HDMI on this camera? It does so many great things, and then you stick a macro HDMI camera, a macro HDMI, and it's just too small, it's insufficient. There's a lot of space in this camera. Get a full-size HDMI on this camera. It just doesn't make any sense not to do that. Also, people complain about no internal NDs, which the C70 has, and that's would be a nice addition, but that's going to make this camera much bigger. It's going to make it much more difficult to get it into the small compact size. So all in all, when I look at this camera, there's so many things I love about it. I don't love the fact that in autofocus mode, in the still side, when you're using the R5, you get the dual pixel autofocus second generation. But when you go to video, you get the dual pixel autofocus first generation, which is like the C70. So the autofocus on this new camera is not as good as the video autofocus in the R5, which originally. So that's an interesting decision to me. Exactly how different is that? It'll be interesting to take a look at that and just see exactly what, is the C70 autofocus good enough? It's pretty darn good. There's no doubt about it. I've used the C70 and that autofocus is pretty clean. But still, why not give us the new version, the second version? Why not do that? All right, so many other things about this camera. Another thing that's really kind of a disappointment is that you have to use power if you want to use 8K recording. So you're going to have to plug power in from the wall. You're going to have a way to be able to power this thing. And that, I think, is a major drawback. It's first off, you're saying, well, this is a camera that's going to be on gimbals and things, but you're going to have to power it if you want to shoot 8K. And so you're like going, well, those two things kind of go in different directions, if you ask me. So I don't think that's a really workable situation. I mean, now you're going to, as a cinema camera, going to be started putting Anton Bauer batteries on the back of this thing and things to be able to give yourself the ability to power it when you're in those situations and you want to be moving around. Because most of the time with this camera, you're going to be moving around. That's, you can't use it for interviews and things. Absolutely, it's going to be great for that, but there's going to be a lot of times you're going to be moving around. And I don't know. Quite frankly, 8K recording, it's a great option, and it's coming, and people are starting to use it because you do an 8K workflow. You can really post that back to a 4K timeline, and you have the ability to punch in and out. And it gives you really the impression of two cameras in an interview, which is a fabulous way to work. I love that about it, but am I going to use that much when I'm trying to get into a workflow which demands higher, really more space on my computer, faster processing, although with the new Macs that are out right now, that's really an option if you want to buy everything new. Everything new for Canon. It's RF lenses, it's new cameras. So all in all, would I buy this camera? Yeah, I'm pretty I don't know. Yes, no, maybe so. I just shot with the A1 this last week, Sony, when I was doing condors. I was photographing condors and pinnacles. What a great experience that was, and that camera is pretty amazing. It's small, it's compact, it gives you all the things you want. It gives you that really, you got IBIS, you got a great megapixel sensor so you can crop in. I don't know. Canon, are you trying to make me buy Sony? Are you just trying to? Are you saying, let's make Morgan buy a Sony? Let's just do it. Okay, all right, you did it. All right, fine. I'm gonna buy the A1. No, maybe I'll buy the R5 C. I don't know, I can't decide. I still can't decide. That's the problem, I can't decide. I just bought the 50mm 1.2 Canon, which is an incredible lens, shooting a lot of kind of stitched together panels with that, which are just beautiful. That lens is sharp and it's a gorgeous lens. So I'm kind of starting down that line, just that's the way they get you in. Here, buy a 50mm lens, yeah. Now you need a camera. Wait a minute, most people buy a camera before they buy a lens. Anyway, all right, moving on here. I think the R5...
Here's a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, comment.
Why won't Canon allow a level display while recording? It's so frustrating. So easy to fix with an update too, I'd imagine, but they've left it off for years.
I don't understand that at all, especially when you get into a camera that's a cinema camera and the ability to be able to record sound, that seems like a no-brainer. But when you get into the C200 and those kinds of cinema cameras, obviously that's part of the entire workflow. Canon is still stuck in this world of let's not give them more than we have to, and I just don't see how that serves them. Sony is slowly gobbling up their market, and eventually Canon's going to have to turn that corner and understand. It really is a sign of a company who internally is really focused on what they want to do to be able to protect their different lines of cameras, and not what's going to make the consumer happy. Sony's on the other end of the market. They're throwing stuff in that A1 that you're like going, wow, that's stuff that's in their cinema line of cameras. But they're doing it because they know there's a market for people who want a crossover hybrid camera to be able to shoot video and stills and to carry that in the field, to work in different situations. And so they're going to cater to that market. Canon's still trying to get you to really have to buy 2 cameras to be able to fulfill all of these different, fill everything you need to do. So, and I feel like that's why we bought the C200 back when we had the R or the Mark III, Mark IV. So it's just kind of that same workflow.
Another comment. The electronic stabilization is the best I've ever seen. It's better for video and less edge warp. Without SDI, the rest is pointless.
You know, I can't wait to test that, because if you can convince me that the electronic stabilization in this camera is good, then I'll absolutely buy it. There's no question about it. I mean, that is the one thing that bothers me. And it's pretty good. I know it's good because I've seen tests in the past on the C70. And so I'll take a look at it. We're going to test it. Like I say, we're going to be over at Film Tools. We'll test it and take a look at that, because that's one of the first things I want to see. I do wish the switching back and forth, taking 8 or 10 seconds, concerns me a little bit. But I don't know. It's not like you're going to switch immediately, but, it's just like you'd like this to respond just a little faster. I do love everything else about it. Full frame, 8K is not a bad thought. If I can get 8K and I can have stabilization that allows this to work, I can get along with just about everything else. I can make this work. So the price point, although you know what, I'd have paid another $1,000 if they'd just put a really strong IBIS in this camera without any problem. I mean, look at the camera, look at the A1. It's $6,500. It's $2,000 more than this camera. But they've got the C70, and they have other things coming. The A1, or the R1, sorry, R1, although I didn't see in the rumors, I've not seen it in the rumors, that that's going to start coming out here in March, or in 2022. So I'm not sure where that's at, because I keep thinking that camera has got to be everything we've always wanted, but probably in a $7,000, $8,000, or $9,000 wrapper. Anyway, all right, other questions?
Not right now.
Okay, we're going to move on here. There's so many other things I can say here about this camera. It got C-Log 3, although it doesn't have C-Log 2. Some people are concerned about that. It has 422 recording, internal recording. I mean, this really has been pushed. Most cameras have been pushed to that level where they are now cinema cameras in these little hybrid bodies, because you're giving yourself a Kodak that really competes on a cinema camera level. But anyway, very lightweight, great screen. Still, the screen, both your EVF and your monitor, are not at the same quality as, say, an A1. They're just not quite there. It's almost 1 million, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but it's quite a bit less resolution on the R5 C. Whereas the A1 has quite a bit better, stronger resolution in both those categories. I love the flip-out screen, because you can vlog, you can use it in that way. And not just vlogging. I mean, people always think, oh, flip-out screen, it's just about vlogging. It isn't. It's about sticking that camera in a corner, working on set. It's not about walking around vlogging as much as it is allowing yourself to see the frame, the picture, without having to stick a monitor and a bunch of other stuff on it. So you can put the camera in a corner, you can shove the tripod in the corner, you can use it in tight spaces. And I think that makes that flip-out screen really important. All right, I think that's it. I'm going to move on from that and just see what else we got going here. All right, going on. Canon has other news. They are shutting down a factory in South China, shutting down the entire factory. This entire factory, though, is really working. It manufactures compact cameras. Compact cameras? What? Why is that factory still open? Why didn't they close that down like 5 years ago? Who buys a compact camera these days? Everyone has phones that give you great images. So it doesn't surprise me that Canon is shutting down this factory because, of course, there's just no need. It also says pandemic problems, creating a shortage. There's chip shortage. The chip shortage is a huge problem, and I believe that we've just seen the tip of the iceberg with regards to the chip shortage, that unless things change drastically in the next 6 months, we're going to start to see cameras not arriving on time and not getting the cameras out there when they would have normally gotten here. So the chip shortage is a big deal, I think. So anyway, this factory was built in 1990. They're shutting it down and moving on to other things. So there you go. Canon also has announced several cameras. These cameras, I think, are really interesting for probably more people than the R5 C will ever service, because these cameras are much more consumer friendly, far more attainable for most people. So they're going to have an APS-C RF mounted camera, which I think is fabulous. They need an APS-C camera. It's kind of a 7D, you know, with some of the M8 and M50. So it's that APS-C sensor size. They've also, I've heard, you see some rumors talking about a lens, an RF lens. Obviously, they're going to come out with an RF lens. And most people come out with a 2470 or a 24 or 30, a 24105. Those two seem very typical for the first time you introduce a camera. 24105 is more video, 2470 is more stills, and just gives you those options. So that's a great, that's going to come out here in 2022. Now this one is really interesting to me. So there's a new entry-level full-frame body that uses the same sensor as a Canon R6. So they're going to come out basically with an R6 that uses the same sensor as the R6. They're going to come out with a camera that uses the same sensor as R6. So I'm just like going, what? This is like a 6D basically. This is a 6D. This is what we used with the Mark III. They came up with this kind of dumbed down, stripped down version of the Mark III that really the 6D, and that was a great camera because for students, for people who didn't have as large a budget, you could get almost the same features and qualities as the highest end cameras, but in a much kind of pared down body. So I think this is a great camera to look forward to. I think there's going to be a lot of people that will like that camera because really the R6 is a great camera in all ways, except for one thing, and that's the other camera they're talking about. They're going to do an entry-level camera between the R6 and the R5, but it's going to have a lower megapixel count than the R5. What does that mean to me? Well, that means the A7 IV, which has a 35 megapixel sensor, has put pressure on Canon to step the R6 up to a level where you're going to compete with that, because that was the only thing that I felt make the R6 fall way behind the A7 IV. That A7 IV was a great camera, great video capabilities. It just really was a beautiful platform. The R6 is a great camera, great capabilities, but falls short as a still camera. So what are they going to do? They're going to come up with a camera between the R6 and the R5, higher megapixel count, and that's going to be an upgrade. It really meant to go head-to-head with the A7 IV. That's my sense of it, and I'm sticking with it. There you have it.
Okay, here's a comment or question. How does the Canon R5 C compare to the Sony A7 III low light ability?
You know, the low light ability capabilities of the R5 C, I really want to test this. I hear people talking about it. I've seen a few tests about it, but I'm feeling like we are getting past the A7 III. I feel like it's not that much better anymore, and it really doesn't stand out. Is it giving you a stop or 2 stops or 3 stops better? No, it is not. I feel like the difference is maybe a half a stop, maybe a stop, but I don't think it's even that anymore. So I think we're going to see the A7 III, last iteration of that. I don't think we'll see another one in the future because I think everyone's going to turn their attention more to the A1 or other versions of the camera along that way. So that's my thought about that, and I think this camera is going to compete pretty closely. ISO is well, we just did a lesson on the channel here about ISO. It hasn't changed as much as you might think it's changed in 15 years or 12 years, I guess it was. And the A7S III is not that much better than these new cameras that are coming out. That's my sense of it. But we'll test that. We're going to definitely test the ISO capability. Maybe we'll throw in a shot of the A7S III just to see how that does. And the A1. It'd be great to see all those compared to each other with regards to ISO.
Here's a comment about the rumors. I would prefer a mirrorless version of the 90D.
Mirrorless version of the 90D would be a great camera and would fit in a great niche in the market, and that's something that you might see. Not what they're talking about right now, but you never know. You never know. Okay. All right. Any other questions before I push on from these the Canon news here?
Nope.
Great time to remind you that Platypod is sponsoring our live streaming today. Platypod has a great deal for Slanted Lens listeners. It's the entire Max multi-bundle, Max and the multi-bundle, $99. Get over there and purchase that. It is worth it. It is definitely worth your money. I carry one of these with me all the time. I really do. Whether I'm backpacking or what I'm doing, it just gives me a quick platform to throw up and take a picture. It gets you away from putting a tripod in places like museums and other things which you can't get away with in any other way. So 99 bucks, it's a great deal. So get over to platypod.com, platypod.com, Julian?
Platypod.com.
Platypod.com and pick up yours today. Get over there and get it. Okay, Sony news. This kind of feeds into what I've just been talking about, and that is that the Canadian press makes Sony Electronics its exclusive provider for imaging products. You know, they're not the first. I mean, we saw this with the several organizations that have come along and have gone this direction. The United Kingdom, PA Media Group in the United Kingdom. There's just several different groups, the Associated Press. Most people are going to these Sony platforms, and I'll tell you why. And that's what we've been talking about. It's simple. It's one camera, and you get so many features. You're shooting video, you're shooting stills. There's just so many different options with the Sony platform, and it's not complicated. They're not holding back. These are great crossover cameras. They're great news cameras, the Sony camera line. It really is. Which leads me to the A7 III, which has been rumored to be coming out this next year, which surprises me a little bit because we are just about to have the Olympics in less than a week. I think it's less than a week soon. I'm surprised that A7 III didn't come out for the Olympics, because it's very much a sports shooting camera with the high frame rates and the ability to capture great in low light. I mean, it's just an excellent camera. I've shot sports with this camera and was super impressed with it. It was a fun camera to shoot. So I was surprised that the version of this didn't come out in time for the Olympics, but you can't have everything for the Olympics. The Olympics has been kind of, they come so fast now, it's like, wow, it's hard to keep up with. But that A7 III will be really interesting to see all the features that are going to be included in that. And it says 24 megapixel, redesigned 24 megapixel sensor, 35 millimeter full frame stacked CMOS sensor, 30 frames per second continuous with autofocus eye tracking. So 35 frames, 30 frames a second continuous for autofocus eye tracking. It's just, you can blackout free up to 30 frames a second from the fast sensor readout speed. It's just the next generation of Bionics XR image processing engine, anti-flicker mechanism, and electronic shutter. So this is a great dual drive mechanism, a mechanical shutter for up to 1/400th of a second. Mechanical shutters is where we're going. It's where we're headed. Get used to them. Start to use them, because I think that's really where everything's going to head. And we saw that with the Z9. They're not going to have a mechanical shutter. That's a mechanical shutter. Electronic shutter. That's anti-distortion electronic shutter with flash sync up to 1/200th of a second. So I got those two. I was on the mechanical shutter, and then my mind went to the electronic shutter. Maybe I should slow down a little bit, which would make my wife really happy. Anyway, 5-axis body stabilization, 4K movie recording, full pixel readout with no pixel binning. So the R9 III will prove to be a great camera if you're in that world where you want sports photography, fast, really the fast capture frames per second. Be a great camera, and that's coming here in the next year, 2022, in the fourth quarter. So it's not going to be till late in the year, but it's coming in 2022. Okay.
Here's a comment. Sony Pro services is still lacking behind even Nikon. We ordered 16 Z9s if they can deliver them.
They ordered 16 Z9s?
That's what...
Wow, that's awesome. So someone's in a sports world. Someone's working at a place that does some kind of sporting events. You know what? I have heard that is an issue still, and getting that kind of service from Sony, boy, if you can't service your cameras, you are not going to compete very long in that professional market, because you need quick turnaround. You need people you need to get loaners. There's several different things you get from Canon Professional Services, which I've been a member of for years and have loved their service. That about Canon is fabulous. So yeah, Sony's going to have to fix that if they want to keep moving ahead and not lose their market share. All right. What else we got here? Stuff going all over the place. And, oh, I want to talk about this one really quick from Capture One. Capture One is a great software. We use it every time we capture. You can't capture effectively with Lightroom. It's too slow. It doesn't work well. Capture One is the software. We were shooting headshots for Henson, for Amazon Gaming not too long ago, and we did everything on Capture One. just because you can see the images, you can make corrections on the images so that a preview comes up so your client can see that. It's just fast, and you can make collection. I mean, everything about it is just made to capture and manipulate. It really has become in its own right a great platform for really doing Photoshop type manipulation with images. That's really its strong point now. It gives you a lot of those features when you're in Capture One. But now they have just unveiled Capture One Live. And at first I thought, wow, Capture One Live, what is that really all about? What does that mean to me? Well, it really means this. Enables real-time remote collaboration from anywhere in the world. So if you're doing a shoot, say I'm out shooting for a client, I'm in Capture One. If I add on this little module, I don't know what you call it, it comes up as a tool in your tool, in the tool belt or tool menu, and you can click on that and you can go live, and somebody from wherever can jump on and see the images that you're doing at your shoot in real time. And they can make suggestions. They can actually go in and create folders and like and dislike, and they can really go in and help with the shoot and feel like they're there at the shoot. That's a great option because so many shoots, especially with COVID, people are doing them without art directors there. But I think we've looked at, a lot of companies have looked at that going, you know what, we got pretty great return or outcome and didn't have to fly, 3 art directors across the world to be at this shoot. So I think this type of an option is going to give you the ability to have people on set who are going to be able to, that people don't have to be on set, but they can see the images, they can work with the images and feel like they're part of the shoot and be in real time going, you know what, we need to change this, change that, let's change a different shirt, let's work on it. So I think this is really a great option. It's just simple to use. It's got passwords so that people get on with passwords to be able to get into the galleries and things so that it's password protected so you don't have a lot of people jumping on. It is $9.99 a month, so it's an additional fee per month to be able to have this option. And that just gives you the ability to get on and to be live and to be able to participate.
Here's another rebuttal to the Sony support.
Yes.
I deal with Sony Pro support, and for the last few years I've had nothing but good things.
So someone said they deal with Sony Pro support, and the last few years they've had nothing but good to say. You know, it's hard for me to judge that because as a content creator, when I send stuff in, I know the Sony people, I know they want to make sure I'm taken care of, and so I feel like we get great service, but maybe we don't. Maybe they're going, they just throw them in the pile with everybody else. I don't know. So anyway, we've always had great service from Sony, never had any issues there. So hopefully that's the case with them. I can't imagine their service is lacking that much to be able to stay in that competitive world of professional photographers. You're not going to live in that very long. But
someone is suggesting that the A9 III has maybe been released to Olympic staff photographers ahead of the public release.
That's possible. The A9 III is out there, but I do know this. We had an A1 and a Sony 200 to 600 millimeter lens, and Sony had to have it back by a certain date because it was headed to China. To photograph the Olympics. So that A1 and that lens were, after we gave it up and sent it back to Sony, Sony shipped it to the Olympics. I'd love to be with that lens in the Olympics right now. That would be kind of fun. So I thought it was kind of cool. We had the lens, we were on top of a mountain, pinnacles in California, and within a week it was in China at the Olympics. So anyway, that's very possible. How did I get sidetracked like that? But it's possible they do have those cameras there and have been testing those for a while. That would not surprise me at all. And I'll ask that question of the Sony folks next time I talk to them. All right, any other questions here? I'm getting to the end of my material and feeling like we wrapped up things pretty well here.
Okay, so this is a question about, is an RF lens on a 5D better versus EF?
That's a great question. Is an RF lens on a 5D better than an EF? You know, I tested the RF and EF. We have a video up on that. You should check it out. The reality is that RF lens is just sharper, but you can't put an RF lens on a 5D Mark III or IV because the flange difference is you can't get the lens close enough, so you can't put an adapter on. So you can only adapt EF to RF. You can't adapt RF to EF. That's just by virtue of mechanics, mechanical engineering and physics, it won't allow you to do that because you can't get the lens close enough to the sensor with the mirror in the way to be able to accomplish that. So So the answer to your question is EF is your only option if you're on your DSLRs at this point.
So somebody's commenting that the issue with all these companies is the chip shortage.
The issue for all these companies really is the chip shortage, and not just camera companies, toasters, just about everything that needs a chip. And over 90 some odd % of those are made in Taiwan, and I don't know what the issues are, supply chain things. I don't worry about those kinds of political issues. I'm not in that world, but I do know this, that Canon has said they're pushing forward. They're going to deliver their cameras. I don't know if they have some kind of an internal solution, which it kind of seems like from the things I've read that they do, that somehow they're going to have an internal solution to solve that. Maybe Canon's going to start making their own chips. I don't know. But that is an issue. Chip shortage is going to be a huge issue for a lot of things coming up in the next year.
Okay, did anyone comment on the new Leica?
Oh, the new Leica. Oh, Kenneth and I were talking about this last night. I just talked to him. The new Leica, I can't remember the name of it. The new Leica, it's the M11. M11, yes, the M11. Kenneth was just super excited about this. One of the things that it does do is it allows you to change the megapixel sampling and to move it from, say, 11 to a larger, like 30 to, to the full megapixel. I haven't tested it yet, but it seems like an exciting camera, newly out. I hope to be able to test that and to shoot some images with it. I love shooting with Leica. It's just a fun camera. Boy, they're expensive though. It's a fun camera, like a Porsche. It's a fun car. I'd like one of those too.
Any new rumors about the Sony A7 APS-C coming out soon, like very soon?
You know what? I have not seen many rumors about the A7000. I feel like it's due, and I can't imagine that won't happen this year. The A6600 is getting pretty old. It's been out there a while. It's definitely time for an A7000, an APS-C sensor. I think we'll see that this year. I have not heard that on Sony rumors, but we should check that out and see what we hear. And I've not heard anything from Sony. They haven't talked about that at all. So I think we may see it, though, in this next year.
Someone's commenting they have a shoot tonight where they're doing a 2-light setup with blue gel on 1 light in the studio.
They have, okay, congratulations. No, go for it. So 2-light setup with a blue light on one. It's just interesting in that kind of thing. I'll give you one tip. Here's a photo tip of the day that's brought on by that comment right there. I did a shoot not too long ago. I had a window on the left-hand side, the model on the left-hand side. I had blue in the window, and I keyed on the same side as the window. So I got a blue window, model with a key that is not colored blue, and then I put a rim, blue, on the opposite side of the window. And then when I look at the image later, I'm going, wait a minute. The color's messed up here. I should have swapped the key. So I get my key on the right-hand side, and the blue rim is on the same side as the blue window. So if you have it in a background, if you've got a little blue wash on the left-hand side, like I've got back here, back there, then there should be a little blue from that side on your model to tie it into the background to help those two live together. That's just a thought. Nothing is carved in stone, can go a lot of different ways. But if you have a window back there that's got red light coming through it, or it's red, or you got warmth of the sun going through it, then make sure you rim with that same color on your model.
Somebody commenting about Canon has an interest in chip fabrication with global foundries. Oh,
someone says that Canon has an interest with chip foundation and global foundries. They've got to have something up their sleeve, because they have said they're going to deliver and the chip shortage is not going to be a problem. So they've got to have something going on. We're going to see, companies are smart. Companies want to make money, and if they have to, we're going to see a lot more chip manufacturing happening in different parts of the world other than just China and Taiwan. So I think companies are going to really step up and make that happen. They know. You have to have product. Although I do know companies in the industry right now who can't get product. And so they're talking to us saying, well, we're waiting for product. We can't get product. And until we get product, there's no reason to advertise. There's no reason to be out there. We got to get product in-house. So the economy is struggling behind that supply chain. The photography industry definitely is. Lenses and cameras, getting those out.
Okay, a question about exposure stacking. How does exposure stacking work at low shutter speed with a 1.4 f lens?
So when you talk about exposure stacking or talking about focus stacking?
It says exposure stacking, I'm not sure.
When you say exposure stacking, I think of focus stacking. And what focus stacking is basically doing is, in a program, you're going to stack the focus. You're going to focus on the front of the hamburger, a little bit in on the hamburger, a little further on the hamburger, a little further on the hamburger, and now the hamburger's in focus, but it doesn't change the perceived depth of field. It doesn't, if I just go from f1.2 to f8, now the hamburger and the beer in the background are in focus. I don't want the beer in the focus to be in background. So I'm going to focus stack, and I'm going to just move that focus through the hamburger, 1, 2, 3, 4 frames, and then it's going to stack those 3 together and just focus those little small planes of that hamburger to where I get those all in focus, but it keeps the beer out of focus in the background. Food photographers use it all the time. Actually, we have a great food download you might want to check out, where we met with Ed Rudolph, and Ed did all these kinds of things. Taught us how to focus stack. He taught us how to do different tricks on set doing food. So that's a great video, and he talks about focus stacking. He does that all the time when he shoots, all the time. And it's worth it. It's worth getting the software and using it. You can do it in Capture One. There's different ways to accomplish that, but it's definitely, if you're doing things with shallow depth of field and you want to keep that shallow depth of field, but you need something in focus that's deeper than, you know, just the actual front of the object, you're going to need a focus stack. Probably wasn't what he asked, but there you go. You got it anyway. And
here's a comment. I'm in Japan and all my jobs dried up after COVID hit, so I'm lucky I can just go creative.
You know, that is really hard. The photography industry got hit really hard when it came to COVID, just by virtue of it really is an in-person process. And consequently, people started, first off, they weren't selling as much product and they weren't advertising as much, and so the need and the just the output just drops drastically. This is also a bad month in production. At least it is in the States. I would guess it's very similar around the world, because what happens is art directors, clients, and everyone gear everything up for the holidays, and then they slide into the holidays and they don't think about it again until they hit their desk after the holidays. So January 3rd or 4th, people are going, oh, we need a new campaign. We got Valentine's coming, we got this coming, things start happening, and then the jobs start coming, but usually late in January into February, things start coming. Not Valentine's. Valentine's is probably shot in December, but anyway, January traditionally in production is a little bit slow, but don't let that worry you. It's going to pick up in February and March. It always does. All right, other questions there, Jolene?
Will it be better with the R5 or the R6 for weddings?
Wow, the R5 or the R6 for weddings. You know, the wedding shooters that I know are most of them using the R6. And just by virtue of the fact that it's smaller files, they're not making prints, and they can make prints large enough for most wedding consumption with that R6. I think this new camera that's coming out, that's going to be maybe a 35 megapixel R6, will become the sweet spot for all wedding photographers. I truly do. I think that's the place that it needs to be. That's why that A7 IV, I think, is so incredible. It delivered such great specs in video and stills, and had a large enough sensor size to give you a great image. So I think that's why they're going that direction. So I think we'll see that as the best video shooter. Now for our best, sorry, I just smacked my mic. The best wedding. If I was shooting weddings, I would be on the R5, and I am such a fan of large file sizes, so I can crop, I can make great prints. It just gives you so many options. If I'm a long ways and I can't get as close as I want, I can crop the R5 50%, and it's going to give me the same framing as the R6, and that's pretty amazing. It truly is. So I think that in and of itself, when I was shooting the Condors on the A7 or the A1, I mean, that was incredible, because even though I have a 600 millimeter lens, it's pretty hard to get super close. I mean, I got some pretty close, but you just have the ability to crop in, and I think that's why I would shoot it. Obviously, the R6 is going to shoot more frames per second, faster. Gives you a lot of options, and I think that's why a lot of wedding shooters have gone that route. Plus, most wedding shooters, we went through that time when everyone wanted to really manipulate all their images and do all kinds of cool things to them, and now we're getting to more let's keep it really natural. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep the workflow easy. And so wedding photographers are getting those images in and out and not spending as much time with them. So I think that smaller megapixel size the R6 has in some ways for some shooters I feel like is an advantage because they can push those files around easier and really be able to make that happen without having to struggle with larger files. So there is is it Photomechanic? Photomechanic is a great sorting software. If you're looking at images and you want to go through them fast, I think it's Photomechanic a lot of wedding photographers use and make that a really easy process. Boy, I just kind of go off, don't I? Just fall right off a cliff. Let me tell you about the time when I was 3. Anyway, other questions?
No ND filter.
No ND filter on the R5 C.
And no in-body stabilization. Something to use the most. No image. The downside of the R5 C.
So the downside, those are the two of the large downside. Well, no ND filters. You know what? I am used to throwing an ND. Like what I usually do is I'll throw a 3-stop or a 6-stop ND filter and then a variable, like a 1 to 5 variable on top of that if you're shooting outside. And I can learn to live with that. You know, I know when I'm going to be outside. It's pretty easy to set that up, flip it on. The Nisi filters we started to use here, which we're very super impressed with, and just give you a great quality. So it really, I've started to work that way, and that doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me as much as the IBIS. It really doesn't. Yeah, I would take IBIS over 8K. Absolutely, no doubt about it. But I want 120 frames a second, you know, in 4K, so that 8K does help that.
So 2 comments about shooting weddings. One person says they shoot with the A1 and he knows it's overkill, but he loves it. Here's another comment. He uses the R6. It's his go-to for shooting weddings.
I think it's all over the map. So you got one person saying the A1's incredible, another person saying the R6 is a go-to. I think you really can't go wrong with those. One of the nice things about the R6 is that you can buy a couple of those and have a backup camera or a second camera, you know, with a longer lens, and that just makes it easy. Double rigs for wedding people are not uncommon at all. So I think that just from a financial standpoint, rather than spending, you know, 10 grand, you're spending 4 or 5, I guess 5 grand, so like half the cost, which is pretty significant when you think about making money. Businesses, and photography is a business, has to be about making money. And so, yeah, so that you have to make that decision. I do think that RF, if you're in the Canon world, RF glass is the way to start going. And I heard someone say not too long ago that they felt like EF glass was the future. I'm going, no, I don't think so. I think it's RF glass all the way. So getting into that R6 and getting lenses that are RF lenses is the way to go.
Here's another comment, loving the R6 for weddings, but not so much for landscape photography.
The R6 for landscape photography is a misdirect. It really is, because it's not a large enough megapixel sensor. It's not going to be sharp enough. You can and get away with it. I shoot most of my landscape stuff on a 50mm lens, and I'll shoot it in 3 pieces and stitch it together. Now you're getting a pretty large file, pretty decent file. But I shot most of them on the, I shot them on the R, you know, which is a larger megapixel than the R6, and I would like to have been on the R5. I do love the R5. Jillian keeps asking me, why do you keep holding on to Canon? We have both Canon and Sony. We have both. We're not sponsored by any of them, so everything I'm talking about is just my meandering personal experience.
And I personally would love a Leica.
Jillian would love a Leica. She would. A little rangefinder. That's Jillian all the way, stealthing around, taking pictures. She would love that. All right, now I know what to get her for her birthday. A very inexpensive birthday gift. The new M11.
What do you think about the future of Ricoh Pentax?
Oh, Ricoh Pentax. They're I don't know. That is a market that is. It's where it's at. It's going to sell in some countries. It's going to have a market. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. I think people are going to still purchase those cameras, but it's not going to be a camera that's going to really be a cutting edge camera any longer. So I think it's going to be around for a long time, but it's not going to be a strong market. You know, there's a lot of money to be made on the way down. They say that about actors all the time. There's a lot of money to be made on the way down. So they'll be around for a while. They do make great cameras. I have Pentax cameras, still film cameras I've loved. So anyway, yeah, I don't think we'll see them as a strong contender much longer.
What is your go-to camera at the moment?
My go-to camera right now is I shoot on the R, but if I can get Sony to send me the A1, I go to the A1. I love that camera. But I do have an A7 RIII, and we use that all the time. Jolene loves that camera because it's small, and it still gives great video. It's got the hot shoe on the top, which I didn't say that about the R5 C. Finally, Canon figures out that you want a hot shoe on the top of the camera to be able to use audio through that hot shoe. And that gives you the ability to put that Tascam recorder on there that's being made. And that Tascam recorder now gives you 2 more XLR outputs. So you can now put 4 XLRs out of that camera, which is wonderful. I'll be in situations sometimes where we have 3 people we have to mic, and that's always a problem. I have to go off the C200, and now I've got to go back to using an external recording device. I just think being able to put that on top is a great device to be able to use that on this R5. The R3 has the same thing. I think that's a great way to work. It really is. Sony's had that forever. We've had the device and used on the Sony forever, where you can put it on the hot shoe, plug in 2 XLRs, and put the lavs on it, and we've used that for a long time. That's kind of our go-to. When we travel and shoot, it's the A7 RIII, A7 RIII. My mind, I'm getting mixed up here. That's Jolene's. She loves it. She's going to be shooting. If I've got a cinematographer on set, we use the C200, or we'll use the A1 or some other camera if it's available. We're begging cameras from Sony all the time. Hey, Sony, just leave us that A1 here for a year or 2, would you?
Yeah, we loved shooting the A1. I also loved shooting the A7 R4.
Yes, Jolene loved the A7 R4, which we will definitely buy, for Jolene, because that's a perfect camera. Great form factor, great size, and excellent video, autofocus capabilities. That's a perfect camera for a lot of things that we do. We backpacked on the top of, not backpacked, but we hiked to the top of the Pinnacles, which was pretty a strenuous hike. 3 miles, almost 1,500 foot elevation gain, and I'm hauling a backpack with a ton of camera stuff in it, and I didn't want to haul the C200 up there. That's insane, but we use the A7 RIII with that little sound module, 1 lav, and it's a great setup.
How good is the Sony digital on camera mic, the little flat shotgun?
Sony digital with a little flat shotgun? I have not used that. I am such a lover of either a shotgun mic, a nice shotgun mic, either on the Sony camera or mixing that shotgun mic with a lav, which like what we're using here. Use that all the time. We do use the Rode, that Rode Go. We've used that some, and we need to switch to that more, especially like when we're hiking, that kind of thing. It's an easy way to capture audio and have a very, very lightweight setup. So, all right, we should be wrapping this up here. Been almost an hour. Any last questions there, dear?
Well, just a comment. Rico is saying they may go to start doing direct selling to customers.
I read this about Rico saying they're going to direct selling to customers, which I think for a company in their situation, that makes perfect sense. Just go directly to direct sales. It just makes it so you can get those products a little less expensive perhaps, but also cut out the whole, we've been retooled. WPPI is coming up here in February, and I'm going, we've been retooled, because I'm talking to SKB, and they're going, no, we're not going to really be at any of the shows this year. People are not going, these manufacturers are not going to shows like they used to, which is heartbreaking to me. It was a great place to meet people, see new products. It just really was the perfect place. But I think we see things changing. So for Rico, not having to do a lot of this, have that middleman and the markup, the wholesaler markup, I think makes a lot of sense for them.
Speaking of which, WPPI is coming up.
Oh, that's right. I have that right here. Yes, I do. I find it right here. Yes, sir. Yes, it is right here. WPPI is coming up. I don't know where it is.
February 27th to March 3rd in Las Vegas.
February 27th to March 3rd. We will be there. Absolutely. We love to go to WPPI. Love the education aspects of WPPI, see what other photographers are doing in business and shooting, see the equipment vendors. We'll definitely be there. I'm hoping for these shows to come back in the future. We'll see a lot more shows coming back. I'm hoping NAB this year will be back and be in force. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm going to go find out. All right, I think that's about it for the day. Thank you for your support. Remember, Platypod, get that Platypod. Get over and get that Platypod. Help support us here at the Slanted Lens. It's the max, 99 bucks with the multi-accessory kit. I use that multi-accessory kit all the time. Strap it around a pole. Use it to get, it also has the Arca Swiss round plate. That Arca Swiss round plate is fabulous. You just put that on your camera. It doesn't matter how you orient it now. It locks right onto an Arca Swiss. You don't have to have the square and orient it just right. Just slap it on your camera and you can put it on any Arca Swiss head. It works perfectly. So that's a really great price of $99. So get over to platypod.com and pick that up today. So thanks for listening with us. Tell other people about our show. Come and join us again in a month when we'll be live. So keep those cameras rolling and keep on clicking.